Welcome back to another session. I'm here with Nico. Nico is somewhere in between the Muggle world and the astrological world. We talked about this a little bit, what it's like learning and being in the periphery of the astrological community in the 2020. So, welcome on, Nico. Excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. This is very exciting, something very different for me.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. Nico's not much for camera, but
Mhm.
I feel the same way. It's not necessarily my most comfortable place to be.
Right.
But we'll launch into it. So you have been studying astrology for a little while, but tell me your background with the esoterics, because I know you
Yeah.
also had some history with tarot.
Yes. I've liked both for most of my life,
Uh-huh.
since like probably high school. Um, so I was mostly doing tarot up until 2020.
Uh-huh.
And then, everything kind of got crazy in the world.
Yeah.
There was a lot online about like major conjunctions and stuff, which I thought were interesting. I had no idea what was really going on with that. Uh,
Yeah, that's true, because in 2020, we had a pretty big one. We had in December the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction
mhm,
that moved into Aquarius. It was the first in a couple hundred years that we saw those two planets conjoin in a different element.
right.
They had been conjoining for 200 some odd years in earth signs and now moving into air signs. So that would have been a pretty big thing for somebody who was already on the periphery, paying
Mhm.
attention, starting to jump in like, wow, these are unprecedented times on many levels, to kind
Absolutely.
of step into that situation. Okay, so yeah, you were practicing tarot, but what changed for you with tarot around that time?
Nothing. I still dabble in it,
Hmm.
but whereas before it was a more regular practice, I became very thirsty for more knowledge on astrology. I knew the basics, the big three, some of the general outer planet stuff, but once I like fell down a rabbit hole, I just kept going.
Yeah. Have you taken any official courses on astrology at any stage?
No, I'm a self-learner.
You're a self-learner, which is very impressive. I'm going to tell folks about when we first met, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We have a friend in common, a mutual friend who introduced us and knew, I think, for a long time that we'd have things to talk about because
Yes.
I've been in astrology for quite some time. And of course, he knew that you were into astrology. And I still remember the face you made when you learned that I was an astrologer. You were like,
Yeah.
your jaw dropped a little bit, like, oh my gosh, this is fun. We have some things to discuss. And then I think you and I walked the rest of the way home
Mhm.
by ourselves with everybody a block or two behind while we were catching up on different ideas. 2020 was pretty big for me too. I was working in I had a traditional job before then. I was working in data science consulting for large infrastructure firms. But when COVID happened, it kind of shook up my life and changed
Yeah.
everything. And I entered into full time astrologer mode at the end of that year. So that was a pretty big transition for me. But what was that like for you? I'm curious, as somebody who was starting maybe to enter the astrological world in 2020, what did that feel like? What was it like?
Kind of exciting. It felt like it's a very hot time to be in astrology now. And I feel like that was sort of the uphill. Like it was just climbing and becoming more and more prominent online. So there was a lot of resources.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like every day I felt like I was learning something new
Hmm.
from a couple different resources. Um,
Well, tell me about some of them. What kind of things were grabbing your attention?
I was mostly using podcasts,
Yeah.
um, listening. And then since then, I do a lot more video.
Uh-huh.
I like to be able to see charts and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then just social media. So it would just naturally pop up.
Yeah.
And now it pops up a lot more.
Yeah.
uh,
Right. You've trained your algorithm
yeah,
to
it knows.
to feed you everything that
Every
you
other one is something astrological related.
Yeah.
Um, so it was very easy to consume as much knowledge. Now, I will say not everything was quality.
This is I think, an issue that every industry is kind of grappling with right now. One of
Mhm.
my favorite social media things what's happening on social media at the moment, there is I'm certain that she's on most platforms, but I think I'm seeing her most on Instagram, and maybe those videos are coming off of TikTok. But she's a nutritionist, and so she's watching all of these videos about people who are, making assertions and claims about what's healthy, what's not healthy, should you eat this, should you not eat that, this type of skincare, is that healthy for you, is it not healthy for you? And she'll just bring everything forward and just actually talk about, well, here's BS here, this is reliable, this has been, presented without context. And I think every industry right now is trying to balance this like noise, factual information. And I think with astrology, that can be a real mess because our industry it's a subjective art in many ways. I mean, there's technique behind it that has thousands of years of tradition built into it, but then everybody's got their own take and got their own point of view.
Mhm.
And I guess you've kind of run into that a little bit yourself, huh?
Yeah, there's not one way to do astrology.
Yeah.
So who's to say this person is right and that person is wrong? It's just a different flavor.
Yeah. There was a really good post recently that I saw from a colleague of mine. Her name is Francesca, and she's based out of the UK. Really fantastic astrologer. Have you heard about the Lionsgate portal? Has
Of
this?
course.
Yeah,
What is it, 8-8?
sure.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it could be anything. I think people have said no. It's actually supposed to be 8-9 or something like this. I'm actually not clear on what the Lionsgate portal is
Mhm.
supposed to be, but she had posted this video saying, "Listen, at some point we have to say." Yes, there are a million different ways to practice astrology, but some of these things aren't astrology, and they're just getting kind of tucked under the
Mhm.
umbrella.
It's all a little woo-woo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got a bunch of different ideas coming together under charismatic individuals who know how to put together a really slick video for social. I mean, I get caught up in them myself. I'm like, what
Of
is that?
course.
What does this mean? I remember a couple of years ago, a friend of mine calling me out of nowhere saying, "Can you explain the Lionsgate portal to me?" And I just had to say, "No, I can't, actually. I have no idea what you're talking about." She goes, "Oh, apparently it's an astrological thing." And I'm like, again, I just have never heard. If you're going to say it's a gate portal, probably not an astrological
Right.
thing.
It feels a little manifesty, a
Yeah.
different branch
Yeah.
entirely.
What do you do with astrology for yourself? I mean, you've got a lot of different places that you're pulling information from.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it on like more of a mundane, like I look at transits,
Yeah.
see how things are affecting things
Uh-huh.
on my day to day. Maybe it's a little bit of planning, but I take it kind of with a grain of salt. Like I don't go too deep in.
Yeah.
Um, so it's mostly just day to day, maybe predictive. Every now and then I do like a timing technique.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Well, talk to me, but like what?
so there is like zodiacal releasing.
Yep. I'm familiar with
Um,
zodiacal releasing. That's a very popular one.
it's it's a little bit much. I get a little confused if I go too deep into it, but I like the broad strokes, like I'm in.
Okay.
And then there is perfections.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a look at those, and solar returns.
I see. Solar returns are a big favorite of mine.
Mhm.
I find those ones very useful. And uh, I tend to know my own solar returns for myself many
Mhm.
years out. And, for good or ill, whatever that means for me. I think what's helpful with solar returns is being able to actually see a chart constructed in front of you, a
Absolutely.
new place to begin kind of interpreting. It is blowing my mind also that you are self-taught, but you've taught yourself how to read a circular chart. This is not so common anymore. I think people are used to like CoStar and like the lists that come out of some of these websites.
I do prefer the circular chart.
Yeah.
I I'm a visual learner, so for me, I need to see where all the little points are and
Uh,
then be able to be like, okay, this is making a connect over here.
yeah.
Um, and also I'd like to see where the houses are and everything too. So all of that visual
Yeah.
is very helpful.
Well, astrology is visual, right? I mean, in most cases, we step out of our door, I mean, if you can picture a couple thousand years ago being in astrology, you step out your door and you take a look at what's around you and you pull out your tools and instruments to try to do your best to map the view of the sky. I don't know if you know this, but there was a bit of drama when the circular chart got introduced as well, because for so long, the charts were drawn in square format.
Is that Vedic?
No, I mean, Vedic astrology certainly used that kind of demonstration, but even in Persian and Arabic
Mm.
astrology, you see it in Greek astrology, you see it in Renaissance astrology. The circular chart was something that started to come out of actually it's more of a modern kind of creation over the last couple
Oh,
hundred years. Yeah. And it's been interesting on the Skyscript forum. I mean, this is an old discussion. Skyscript is a website for astrologers by astrologers, and there's a very active forum on there. And every now and again, researchers kind of come together. And somebody just said, "What was the origin of the circular? When did this transition take place?"
Right.
And there were very robust debates. A century and a half ago, I believe the timing is. I'm really not, don't quote me. I'm not good on the timing on this. I didn't think to remind myself of these details before coming in today. But the discussion was like, well, everything appears to us to be a circle. The moon is a circle, the sun is a circle, the
True.
globe around us appears to be a circle. There's an arc above our head and an arc below. But still, it was a pretty big discussion about the ridiculousness of, should it be a circle? Should it be a square? And yeah, I think we've never really made changes in the way that some of these chart wheels have been demonstrated without noise. Astrologers like to complain, they like to comment, they like to have feedback.
There's no shortage of feedback.
No, there's never going to be any shortage of feedback. What was the last thing that you looked up for yourself with astrology?
Well, I mean, the eclipse.
Right. So there was an eclipse
Mhm.
just recently at 20 degrees of Leo. How was that for you?
Uh, okay. I mean, it sat opposite my sun, basically,
Right.
a few degrees off, but I'm going into a nodal return now.
I see. So it's just that time for you. It's
Yeah,
the
so
big
I'm
change.
curious to see what's gonna happen.
Well, you're here in a
No,
podcast
this
room.
is
You
actually kind of crazy.
yeah, you kind of maybe started a completely new transition. Who knows? This might be the launch for yourself as an astrologer at some point.
It's true.
Yeah, very possible.
You might be seeing more of me.
What, when you're engaging with astrology online, what kind of materials bringing you in right now? What are you excited about?
For the last couple weeks, I've been monitoring more
Mm-hmm.
of the eclipse stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm always kind of looking for something new. I have that sort of like insatiable curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a while, it was a little bit of the locational astrology, which I'm still kind of like dipping my toe in.
Right. So when you say locational astrology, are you talking about astrocartography?
Yes,
Okay, let's put a pin in that and come back to that in a moment because there's some big news happening in that world that you probably caught on
I've
to.
I've heard whispers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, why don't we just jump into it? There it was quite shocking. So astrocartography, just for those who are maybe not familiar, the idea is that any moment in time, like if we're in New York right now
Mm,
recording and the sky is the way that it is, and if somebody was born here at this exact moment, um, they'll have a birth chart that's going to be configured to New York City. But that exact same moment in time, the sky will look different in Mumbai, it'll look different in Beijing, it'll look different in Buenos Aires. And so locational astrology or astrocartography is kind of mapping how does your birth chart, for instance, appear in different places in the world. Not just birth chart, it's just that astrocartography tends to be used a lot with natal astrology.
mhm.
Um, and it's been around for some time. Astrocartography as a term was coined by Jim Lewis, and I believe that was in the 70s, and he wrote a book on it, and it has been featured in pretty much every astrological conference for decades. People have offered it as a special service. People have qualified and studied under Jim Lewis. I know Madeline Hillis-Deneen, a colleague of mine, has also done a lot of work for a very long time with astrocartography. One of the first conference presentations I ever went to was hers on. So that's why I
Okay.
remember this. But what's really wild is that there has been, because of the social media spike in interest in locational astrology, and it's so easy to sell it. The idea of where would your Venus line be? Meaning, where is your natal Venus somewhere really powerfully placed? What places in the world would it have been on the midheaven, on the ascendant, or on the descendant, for instance? Maybe that's where you're going to find romance. Where's your sun? Maybe that's where you're going to find promotion or work opportunity or, feel like you've really found
Mhm.
yourself. It's so easy to market this. And I remember about 2 years ago seeing people go, kind of take their own spin on it, thinking, all right, this is a little out of context, some of these, videos on Instagram. But they just caught like wildfire. Suddenly it was like within the space of about 6 months, I was seeing ads for astrocartography everywhere.
Absolutely.
Right. And then a couple months after that, we're getting news that people who studied in the last like 6 months to learn a little bit about locational astrology, have filed to trademark astrocartography in France. There are people who have filed it here in the United States as well, effectively
That's crazy.
it's crazy. It's completely the antithesis of,
To what end?
this end to what end? Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so locational astrology was drawing you in for a while.
Yes. And then, I feel like I need to do a little bit more digging with that one.
Yeah.
There's some concepts that I don't quite understand yet.
Yeah, I understand. It takes a lot from your brain to kind of picture it.
And even like trying to understand like the mapping.
Yeah.
And like how that all looks is a little
Uh-huh.
quirky. But I would say that's probably been the biggest topics lately.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will find something new
Yeah.
to dive into.
That's great. I mean, I've been really inspired by people who are continuing to find new ways to be interested in this subject that's been around for thousands of years and
Oh, yeah.
meeting new communities where they're at all the time. It's kind of a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I feel like the community is growing
Yeah.
more and more. Like I said, social media was, I think, a huge help.
Yeah.
I see tons of new content
Yeah.
with new people that are just starting out. Like, I think it's kind of inspiring, actually.
So let's flip the coin. Is there anything that you think is a little, yeah, let's put you front and center. Is there anything that you think is maybe getting a little too overhyped at the moment?
Well, from like an astrological point of view,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that because of social media, there's maybe, um, I think the influencer quality
Uh-huh.
can sometimes be a little toxic,
Yeah.
and that can ruin some of the content.
Tell me
that's
more.
being
What do you
shared.
mean by that?
So I can usually tell when it's going to be like quality information versus something that's a little uh, surface level.
Yeah.
Uh, and if people are positioning themselves to try to like garner a big crowd or get the likes kind of thing, it feels less like uh, this information that I'm going to get from you is going to be anything of quality, and more just like you're looking for um, getting your numbers up on social media. So I usually like will watch for a minute or two, and then I'll kind of have a sense of like, okay, it's time to move on to something else.
I understand. I have a similar kind, like I am endlessly fascinated by YouTube presentations or Instagram videos, reels, stories, where it seems like there's about 4 seconds worth of content that gets stretched somehow into 3 minutes. And I
Yes.
don't know how. I don't have that gift really. I mean, I can gab and I can just kind of fill space by talking. But I mean, I saw a video recently about, your Mars tells you where you're going to be competitive and have an edge, and turned into a video that got, I think, over 100,000 views. It was posted just a few days ago. And I remember thinking to myself, I mean, sure, why not? I suppose if you're going to, I mean, because we're really reducing astrology down to absolute brass tacks when we talk
Right.
like that, which is fine. I mean, you kind of have to start somewhere. But some of the material, I watch it and I think I don't actually like watching it much because I don't want to watch things to then just feel like all I'm doing is watching and finding myself criticizing
Right.
or feeling like I don't like how this is representing the industry or how, and it's like, this isn't my business. This is an influencer. This is a hobbyist, or this is maybe even a professional, somebody who's got interest in the field. And at the end of the day, we probably have more in common than we have
Definitely.
indifference. It's just watching the video for whatever reason makes me feel like a little bit of stress sometimes. Like, how do we respond to this? Um, so you've been in the field now for a little while.
Hmm.
You have been, I mean, a good while. So if you really started stepping into astrology at 2020, I mean, and that was like a little bit of a modern golden era for astrology
Yeah.
because so everyone was at home looking for things to do. People were offering classes and webinars, and chronically online became kind of just a way of being, I think,
Definitely.
as a result to COVID lockdowns.
I spent many, many hours listening to podcasts.
Yeah, I believe you. I believe you. When we first met, you told me about all the podcasts that you were listening to, and they were quality podcasts too.
Yeah.
I thought that you had selected some good ones, like the astrology podcast is. I know a
Yes.
very popular one, and it has a lot of really good information there and great astrologers who get featured. There were a few others that I think I remember.
At that time, it was probably mostly the astrology podcast,
Right.
because there was a good, like, in-depth dive
Yeah.
to a variety of topics. It
Yeah.
was, they would do forecasts, which I thought were really informative, and then they would go into timing techniques
Mm-hmm.
or like specific houses, and like it
Yeah.
would be like a 4-hour thing on it.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was going through courses at that point.
Yeah.
And then since, uh, I still use them probably as like my bread and butter, but
Okay.
I do see a lot more videos on YouTube. Um, One that you were recently on,
Me? Which one was
yes,
that?
the Dan Waits.
Dan Waits. Oh, I love Dan. I wondered
Mhm.
if it was Dan. Was it Cuba is Next? Is that the one?
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. We had it was good filming that. We had a conversation, Dan and I met at a conference a few years ago in the UK at the Astrological Association's annual conference.
Mhm.
Um, Mundane astrologers are those who specialize in mundane astrology. We don't often get a chance to meet each other so frequently because um, I think it's changing now. I think the interest in mundane astrology is absolutely moving on an up peak a little
Mhm.
bit, but around the time that Dan and I were, kind of getting to know each other, it was still kind of a sparse field. Um, but he'd been online with the World Astrology Report for a really long time. So when we met, I was like, Dan, I had actually drafted a whole podcast that I was going to start called the World Astrology Report. And then when I went online to start thinking like, how am I going to design this and get visuals? I found yours within seconds and I thought, okay, I
He
have to
beat you
let
to
this go.
it.
It's the same name. It was so insane. So I told Dan, I said, that's crazy. I run a conference at least once a year, every year. It's held online on mundane astrology,
Mhm.
and it's called the World Astrology Summit. Feel free to look it up. And we offer it around the spring equinox every year. So around like March 20th, the weekend around March 20th. And every year I was getting a request, um, Dan Waits, bring Dan Waits, bring Dan Waits. And I was like, yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And messaged him and said, hey, I don't know if you've got interest in it. And he was interested, and his presentation was one of the, I think, a fan favorite or a
Oh, yeah.
registration favorite, certainly. What'd you think about the Cuba video?
I thought it was very informative.
Nothing's happened, though, has it?
Not yet.
Yeah.
These
I
things
mean,
take time, you know?
well, that's right. And also, so much has really changed with respect to what the Trump administration is doing at the moment, because there was a period of time where Cuba's next was what everybody was saying in the administration. I mean, I can remember Marco Rubio saying it. I feel like Lindsey Graham uh, said it quite a few times. Trump certainly said and continued to imply that there was going to be continued expansionary pressure. Um, kind of a revitalization of the Monroe Doctrine.
Of
And
course.
yeah, that was a very busy year, trying to make sense as to where the US was going to continue to exert its influence. So,
I'm sure there will be more heightened astrology to come that
I,
could
yeah,
shift us in that direction.
I think you're right. I think 2029, 30, 31 is going to be a pretty pivotal period for the United States. And so we'll kind of see where this all, leads us and pushes us. Um, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What do you feel if you were to say, for instance, in your time kind of studying astrology and being around this industry and picking things up, you've been trying to nail down an answer on something or to understand any piece of the art or to discuss it, but you haven't gotten a straight answer or can't really seem to find good resource on it? Does anything stick out to you?
I because it is sort of a self-taught path,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's probably a lot of resources that I just don't currently have access to,
Uh-huh.
but I'm sure that answer is out there. So for me, it's I have a lot of the basics down,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit more. Uh, so I'm looking for that next additional layer, and that is very difficult to find. Like I can find, something about, two planets that are making a conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it mean when I have those two planets conjunct directly squaring another planet?
Mm-hmm.
That like third piece, I think is really difficult for me to find information on. If anything, it's maybe touched upon here or there
Yeah.
with some of the more intermediate like podcasts
Mhm.
or things. But I think that and like going further into techniques, like that's really what I'm looking for at this point.
Right.
Um, but I'm sure that resource is there.
The resources are out there. You've picked up on, I think, what is a challenge for every astrologer who is practicing to figure out how to talk about what you've described. There's an old saying that every symbol has 72 meanings. So you get two planets together, and then they're both going to be in their own signs. Maybe they'll be in the same sign, but at the very least, you've got three symbols working there, the two planets plus the sign. Then you've got the house that those two will be conjoined in and what that's got to say. And then you've got this planet, and that's aspecting from some other part of the chart to this conjunction that's going to be in its own sign, and it's
Right.
got its own considerations. So what ends up happening here is um, we are an order of magnitude like 5 times beyond this 72 meaning situation, which can create a lot of challenge and difficulty in figuring out how do we talk about all the different ways that these symbols can manifest. So what you're describing is a very, I think, a real challenge. My suggestion is always to consider formal education at some stage, so I'll probably push you in that
I
direction.
mean, it does feel like the logical next step.
Yeah. And you just really got to figure out for yourself, like, what do you want to do with astrology? Like, do you want to learn how to answer questions? Do you want to learn how to read birth charts? Do you want to learn how to provide meaningful and reliable commentary on global events, sociopolitical issues, geopolitical issues? There are places you can study any and all of those things. I teach and am a director of the School of Traditional Astrology. We're celebrating our 30th birthday this year.
It's a big one.
Yeah, so it was founded by Deborah Holding in 1996, and we teach specialist courses. So we've got horary astrology, mundane astrology, and a number of other opportunities for exploration. So what you're looking for is out there. You just kind of have to know what it is that you're, trying to explore. Today, you and I are going to get an opportunity to take a look at astrology in action. Maybe we can start to pull apart some of these questions you've got. So you came to me, I asked you, I said, what should we talk about
That's
today?
true.
And what did you say? What should we talk about?
A very passionate topic for
Yeah.
me, and it's art heists.
Art heists, jewelry heists.
Jewelry
I was so
heists.
excited because when we were talking about what we might discuss for this episode, you said, well, this piece of news about this art heist that happened recently in Italy has got my attention. And
Yes.
you sent me a news article. And that had actually I'd gone completely off my radar. I hadn't seen it happen.
Oh, yeah.
But I had done a lot of research into the Louvre heist that happened in October of last year. So I brought for both of us our books. And when we come back for the second part of this interview and this discussion together, we will review the astrology of these heists and some useful traditional principles for determining the action of fugitives, where they have gone, if they're likely to be caught, and how those traditional principles show up in this astrology and relate to what's transpired in both cases.
It's very exciting.
Very excited.